So in this video, we're going to be thinking about storage and backing up. So when it comes to video and audio, quite nicely, pretty much all storage is recorded the same way, and that is through either SD cards or micro SD cards. In terms of the SD cards, they come in different kind of categories. You'll often see various confusing numbers across them, but generally speaking, class 10, so they'll come in different classes, but you'll often see class 10, and that's kind of what you want to go for really. Aside from that, you'll also see a V number, so you'd have V30s, V60s and V90s. In terms of the kind of projects that I work on, I don't really need to worry about the write speed in a big way. Essentially that is about write speed, so a V30 would be the lowest and a V90 would be the highest. If I was recording super slow motion footage, 100 frame rates, and I wanted that to be at 4K on my camera, in that situation I would probably need a V90 SD card, for example. But yeah, for recording even 4K, it probably wouldn't be a problem. A V30 would be absolutely fine. If you go on Amazon and you type in SD cards, most of those SD cards are probably going to be fine, as long as you're not doing anything 4K in slow-mo. That's probably when you need to start thinking about different classes of SDs. SanDisk is a great brand. I use SanDisk for pretty much all of my SD cards. They have various different kind of categories: Extreme, Extreme Pro, Ultra. But yeah, they're all great. They're just about write speeds basically. If it matters, for me as a videographer, sometimes I'm on a shoot and I film lots of footage. I need to dump it quickly so that we can film more stuff. In that case, I do buy the Extreme Pros, which have the highest transfer rate. If something like that isn't going to be a problem, then any of the range would be absolutely fine. So in terms of these SD cards and how we might get the data onto a computer, you've got various kind of SD card readers. This is obviously quite a big one. This is more like a dock for my computer with lots of inputs. But on these kind of things, you'll often find SD card readers and micro SD card readers. You can also get just like a standard SD card reader where the micro SD will slot into it and then it almost becomes a normal SD card. Some laptops, if you're lucky enough, will have an SD card reader on them, but you can buy all sorts of smaller dongles, and that's basically how you're going to get that data onto your computer. In terms of how big you need these SD cards to be, again, that would mainly kind of be dictated by obviously time and the resolution. So whether you're shooting in 1080p or whether you're shooting in 4K, and how long you're recording for. Taking a look at this table here, you can get a vague idea for how much time you're going to get out of a certain SD card. For me personally, I have quite a lot of 128 gigabyte SD cards, and they do fine, but then I do have some smaller ones for things like audio, 32 gigabytes. In terms of audio, a 2 gigabyte card would record for hours. So, you don't need to think about massive cards. And one thing to note is that certain audio recorders won't accept a certain size of card. So I have some Zoom recorders that only accept 16 gigabyte cards. If I bought a 32, it won't actually write to it. So once we've recorded data to our SDs or our micro SDs, the next stage is kind of permanently storing that, or storing it in a place where we could obviously then edit it. So that's where we come on to our hard drives. So broadly speaking, there are two types of hard drives. We have kind of what we essentially just call normal hard drives and SSD drives. So SSD drives, two things: they're a lot faster in terms of write speed, so I can put things on here quicker. And then also in terms of what I'm editing, this is going to be a lot more capable of handling big data, 4K and all those kind of things. I kind of need an SSD for that. So yeah, it kind of depends on the kind of projects that you are working on and how you're filming. These kind of drives, they're great. They're great for archival storage, keeping things for longer. I've got lots and lots of normal hard drives. In terms of storage, it's really good practice to think about storing your data in more than one place, and that means physically as well as just digitally. So if you have two hard drives, and they've both got the same footage on them, but they're stored in a place there that could be flooded. You haven't really got a backup. So, you know, we're in a very digital age where online backup is very cheap. Google provides very cheap online storage, as does, you know, Dropbox and other kind of providers. But yeah, online storage is going to be the most secure way of you backing that up. You know, when we're talking about video, it is tough because it is big data. You know, I'm not expert at always having my things online, but yeah, having it on a couple of hard drives is a really good way of just, you know, making sure that you don't run into problems. For me personally, you know, I kind of have what I would call a working drive. This is where I'm going to be storing the data while I edit it. So this is where my kind of project files and stuff will be. I would then have a backup drive. So when I finished a shoot, this is where I'd put the raw footage, so that if anything should happen to the project, any kind of corruption, worst comes to worst, I still have all of that raw data. And then kind of moving on from that, I would have an archive drive where it's just like old projects where I can store them. You know, whether that was like a NAS drive, which is a bit more stable, or whether that was online backup. Yeah, somewhere where I can kind of put them away and forget about them.